Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast. This is Tanner.
This is Corey.
We're missing Dave.
What's your problem? Oh, you don't feel bad for Dave.
Don't feel bad?
He's
Okay.
fine.
Well, Dave
He's
will be
fine.
just fine.
He's not feeling so hot.
No, but he'll be all right, hopefully, here. Maybe if once he hears the good news about what we're going to talk about today, he'd get all fired back up again.
Maybe he could sell some land down there.
That would be a lot of fun. So,
He's an auctioneer and realtor, so he likes land.
I'm excited, listeners. This is something that we don't get to do very often, but because we're in the podcast land and we have the reputation we did because of what you do for us, we get to have some industry-leading conversations.
We're breaking news.
Potentially
I think, right?
revolutionizing
First time
agriculture.
ever done
Yeah.
that we know of.
That's right.
What is that? What are we doing?
We're going to break the story.
Break the story
We're going to break the story.
and break some weird word that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you know that sometimes people call that, like, this is your funny bone,
Yeah.
and then it's called your humerus,
Yep.
or you got a lot of different names for body parts. The first time we heard this and they said that they broke it, I thought it was a body part.
Yeah. Our friends at AgXplore, specifically Zach, goes, "Hey, we broke the Fragipan." And I go,
Like,
"What?
was that
Are
a piece
you
of
okay?
was that a piece of equipment?
Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?"
That's right.
So we got a couple special guests here.
Yes, we do, listeners.
Billy with AgXplore and Dr. Lloyd Murdock. Dr. Lloyd, you're at a university. Where you at?
University of Kentucky.
University of Kentucky.
Yeah.
We are here at NACADE, the North American Conservation and Drainage Expo. What a place to break the news. You guys drove 4 hours up to see us today. But before we get into the breaking news, please, Doctor, start with you. Tell us a little bit about your history, and then we'll go to Billy.
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, was educated in Virginia, and then came to University of Kentucky and as a research and extension specialist in soils and soil fertility and things like that. So that's my background, and I'd never heard of the Fragipan until I came to Kentucky. I didn't know what it was, so I dove into it after a while.
Did you grow up in agriculture?
I grew up, my dad was a ag teacher, yeah, and so I grew up, we had a little farm, so yeah.
And how long have you been at the University of Kentucky?
A long time. I've been there over 50 years.
Holy
Wow.
smokes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
50 years, one job.
I mean, they say most farmers don't get 50 years
Don't get 50 crops.
of crops. That's amazing. Congratulations on your...
Well, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners and friends, thanks for listening to the Farm for Profit podcast and enjoying our content. But it's time for us to find out more about our audience. If you wouldn't mind heading over to farmforprofit.com at the top of the page and take our survey to give us a little background on who you are and what we can be doing better as far as content goes. Everybody that takes the survey will be entered into the opportunity to win $100. So we look forward to getting your feedback. Again, head over to farmforprofit.com, click that survey link at the top of the website, and we thank you in advance for your feedback.
How much longer you got, you think?
I don't.
What kind of question is that?
Are you okay? I should ask it this way: do you ever plan to retire, or is this something you're gonna just?
I'm
keep
not
on
full
going?
time. I'm just
Okay.
part time,
Okay.
and so I take my time off to do things like that. But I love agriculture. I love finding something new and different. I love helping people, and when you put all that together, basically that's a service that I like to do, and I'm excited about it.
Cool.
You know.
All right, Billy. Let's get your background.
From Kentucky originally. Been in agriculture my whole life, born and raised on the farm. Been with AgXplore for 5 years, was in the retail business before that. Farm myself. I'm a livestock man. I have just enough row crop to feed the animals at home. So I did my professional career, take care of the crops in the field, and I like the livestock there on our farm. Started following Dr. Murdock 12, 15 years ago. With AgXplore, I do a lot of stuff with the National Corn Growers Association with growers across the U.S. Had success on the national level, a lot of state winners and things of that nature. And in Kentucky, I think this year made the 10th or 11th year in a row I've had a customer win the National Corn Grower. What made me so excited this year was the Pascal Ag operations down in Hazel, Kentucky, Callaway County, and they live in this Fragipan soil that we're going to speak about here in just a bit. And county averages are not very good, but they hit a 319 bushel on their irrigated ground this year. But most interesting, as I think we'll get to, is 245 bushel on a piece of dirt where we got 3/10 of rain from January 3rd to harvest. Where county average, that's it. Where county average is about 75 to 80 bushel in that time. So we started pulling those cores and seeing things, and being with AgX, you know, obviously a fertility company, but it's bringing cutting edge things to the market. Because if we can put programs together that makes that grower get on that cutting edge, then it makes us able to take them to the areas they want to be at. That's where Dr. Murdock and his researches came so valuable for us. It's just another avenue to say, hey, we're going to be the leading industry individuals to find those things for the growers, and that's just how it is.
That's great. So
Wow. What kind of livestock did you say you had?
I'm sheep and cattle.
Sheep and cattle. Okay.
Few goats. They don't live very well, so I don't talk about those as much.
yeah. So before we talk about the amazing thing we did with this, we have to learn about what the heck is
it?
the Fragipan. And I know I went to Iowa State University, and I know my soil professor, Dr. Manu, would have be mad at me because I probably learned about it at one time. We just don't have that in Iowa, though. So I didn't put it in my brain. So what is a Fragipan, and what's its pain point?
Well, he probably never talked about it because
I don't know. I sat on a computer and I saw all these different soils.
Yeah.
I mean, we learned a lot about soils. But
well, it's not in it's in mainly in the eastern part of the United States. I went to college at Oklahoma State, and they didn't talk about it. I went to college at the Virginia Tech, and they didn't talk about it, and so I didn't know anything until I went to Kentucky. Basically, Kentucky, with a lot of other states in the eastern part of the United States, our soils aren't as good as Iowa and Illinois and some of those things. So basically, we have to do, in my opinion, a really good job of farming in order to stay competitive with people that have good soils. If you inherit a lot of money, you've got a leg up on someone that starts with not much, and that's kind of where we are, and that's what the Fragipan does. It is a layer in the soil that is cemented together.
Cemented together.
Yes, it's an old soil. It's an old profile. And during the glacier advances that came down from the north, of course, there was a big ice bulldozer, and it just flattened out the hill, filled up the next valley, flattened out the next set of hills, filled up the valley. There was a lot of disturbing of the soil, and when it began to melt, it just huge areas of floodplains that were there. It's the Mississippi floodplain is 60 miles wide there. If you go west out of Kentucky, it's 200 miles. If you go west out of Memphis. And so all this stuff was drained down, that soil that was disturbed. A lot of it was moved down into those big floodplains, and there were times when they weren't hardly covered in no vegetation of any type. You got winds, and they blew east from the prevailing westerly winds. And we have acid soils, so that gave the chemistry right for a gel to form. And so at the interface between the new 2 feet of soil that's on top and the old profile that's below, and that interface between those two, that gel formed and filled up all the pores, all the spaces that were in that old one, and it dried, and then it became like concrete. And it's not exactly like concrete, but it acts like it. You can't get a root through it. You can't get any water through it. You can have, if you take a probe and push down through it, you can have 5 feet of soil, but only 2 feet, that the top 2 feet are functioning, because that layer stops it.
And we know how crucial, the roots going deep here in Iowa, we're not in Iowa, we're in Indianapolis, we can access nutrients and water and oxygen and all that, and you just have 2 feet.
The biggest thing is the water. The biggest thing, if you get 40 inches, 50 inches of rain like we do, and you get a lot in the wintertime, that there's no vegetation hardly growing at all. And so the precipitation greatly exceeds the evapotranspiration. So you get water buildup on top of that pan close to the surface. In fact, on these hillsides, it'll seep out a lot of times because it just gets to the point that it can't go anymore. You can really get stuck in those fields, let me tell you.
Oh.
My farm's a rolling farm, and you think rolling farm, good drainage. While we're here at the Drainage Expo, but I'll have tractor ruts 6 and 8 inches deep during the wintertime just going over a mountain. And you should not go over a 10% grade and have that. But I'll have, he talks 2 foot. I've probably got 9 to 11 inches before I hit it on my hillsides up through there in that North Todd area.
Is the soil above the Fragipan generally pretty fertile?
It's good. It's a silt loam soil. It's really good. It's low in nutrients. It's usually acid, and it's usually very low in phosphorus. But you can correct those things. You can correct the nutrition, but you can't correct the water holding capacity.
How big of an area are we talking? Is the Fragipan?
It's in Louisiana, it's in Arkansas, it's in Missouri, and all the states, most of the states east of that, and then it curves, and it's in the southern part of Illinois, southern part of Indiana, southern part of Ohio, through most of Pennsylvania, most of New York, and a lot of the states to the south of that.
That's a lot larger area than I thought. You do have a amount of acres?
50 million.
50 million.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need 50 million more acres of corn, but not right now.
Well, a lot of them are growing corn now.
They are?
It's just at a reduced yield level.
What would you say an average corn yield is on a Fragipan soil?
On the places that we have where we have broken the Fragipan, the 2 places I know where it has completely dissolved it, the yields went up 50 bushels or above the county average.
Okay. So water
bushels per acre.
Water's the issue. We're at a drainage conference. We're putting tile in. We're doing all this different technology. Yeah. Tile can't even break the Fragipan?
No. In fact, if you put tile in there, it'll seal over, and you can't get any drainage. People glaze it, but it has to be on top of the Fragipan.
Which 2
Doesn't
foot
do any good,
you don't have much.
Well,
so Iowa, you think about ripping, and you're going to rip, and Illinois and stuff. So we had that same thought process there in the Fragipan soils. We rip, 30 days later, we're cemented back over, you know, and we're going to get nothing. What we got to do, the only way to possibly get a tile in there is a ditch witch and integrate 2 soil types together. But if you just pull a tile through there, you might as well save your money.
Well, I know when we talked on the phone, when you first told us about this discovery, same thing. We're looking at a Buckeye trencher over here that has the wheel. And you said it doesn't take long for it just to still kind of, even though you've mixed soils.
If you mix soils, it's better.
Yeah,
but it'll still end up closing over.
No, if you do a good job of mixing, it won't close over.
But that's only one slot that you cut, so the water still has to go on top of the Fragipan over to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Which that's not good. I mean, it's going to be still saturated.
Yeah, it's still saturated.
Mm-hmm. So we've got to wait 3 weeks to plant in the spring.
Yep.
And then when we turn hot and dry in July,
cement.
We just shrivel.
So what's the soil like underneath the Fragipan?
It's good.
It's good, too.
It's that old. There were 4 glacier advances. And each time this phenomena of the wind blown and things like that I've talked to you about happened. And so basically you have a good soil below that in most cases. There are some exceptions to that. So if you take out that Fragipan, you've got a great soil. You can compete with Iowa and in Illinois and places like that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You said, well, we don't have as good of soils because of the Fragipan, but then you were talking about yields of breaking it, and it's like, maybe you got just as good. You just got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah.
So, for years, no one could figure out how to deal with it or how to break it.
No.
How did you do it?
Well, there had been attempts.
How long had you been trying?
Quite a while. There had been attempts where they did deep subsoiling, like there's a California plow and things like that, mm-hmm. and those never did work. The one thing that did work was a trencher. In the University of Missouri, people used a big trencher, but that was so expensive that it worked. Mm-hmm. That was the only one that I knew of was good, and so I did a little work in the greenhouse and decided, okay, if we can lime this and put some phosphorus in it. We'll inject that with a deep shank of some type, and we did, but it only changed a small area, and that was in the 70s, late 70s, and so it's such a small area, it didn't make much difference. But then you went on, and we were trying to get no-till started in Kentucky and in part of the United States, and that took a lot of time. You just finally let it go, and then when I get to the end of my full-time career, I said, okay, I'll come back half-time, but I want to work only on this.
Wow.
And so they said, sure. And so I put together a team, and we started in the laboratory to see what would break it down. We got the big clods of down, put it in jars, and put different chemicals in these jars and see which it would fall apart, see which one would make it fall apart. And so we identified probably 6, 7, 8, I can't remember, different chemicals, sodium nitrate, potassium chloride, potassium sulfate, a bunch of others, metahexaphosphate, and a bunch of other things. And so then we thought, okay, and then this guy had been raising ryegrass up in Illinois, southern Illinois, on a field that was eroded and not very good, and Mike Plummer was the agronomist there at the University of Illinois. And so I heard about it, and so I went and looked, and I said, this may be working on the Fragipan. So we grew ryegrass and ground it up and boiled it and put the water from that into one of these things, and it fell apart. So
you grew ryegrass separately,
yeah,
and then you ground it up with water and tested that on the soil.
Yeah, and the exudate that comes out.
Okay.
We put it on the soil, and the Fragipan fell apart.
So it's not the roots; it's whatever it's putting out.
Yeah, so so now then we went to the greenhouse, and you put all these different things that break it down. Plus you put ryegrass or grow ryegrass, and by far the most effective one was ryegrass, because what's in that ryegrass, those roots will take it down to the Fragipan, and you don't have to introduce it on top of the horizon and hope that it'll get all the way through before it changes or gets lodged some way or something. And so that was by far the most effective method. And so then we started putting some of these other things in relationship to it or with it to see if we had a synergistic effect, and we didn't get much at all. Sodium nitrate gave us a little bit, but that was the only one. So the key was, and we tested a bunch of, after that we started testing plants. Now, we didn't test thousands of them, even hundreds, but we tested 15, 20 of the common ones that are grown, and we didn't find anything. It's net one, excuse me.
No. You go back to the roots right there. It is the exudated roots, but if I'm not mistaken, it's 1,200 psi is what a ryegrass root puts off, roughly.
It's very high.
And it's able to penetrate.
It's a combination.
It's a combination. So it's stout enough to penetrate the Fragipan, but also bring exudates down as it goes through.
So it's injecting it.
Correct. It's injecting it.
Now, if your Fragipan's 12 inches below the surface on some side hills, but it's 24 to 36 inches deep, our ryegrass roots can get 24 inches deep.
Oh yeah, they can go several feet. We dug them up. I commonly find it. I would do a lot of probing in these fields, and the probe goes almost 4 feet, not quite, but I'd always, if that Fragipan wasn't hard and you could had ryegrass growing over there several years, it would continue to break it down a little at a time. If it could get to 42, 43 inches, it'd get to 42, 43 inches.
So the ryegrass is terminated each year, or you have to let it grow for a couple of years, then you come plant into it?
No, you can use it as a cover crop every year. It's not a preannual, it's an annual. And so it will die.
Annual ryegrass.
And yeah, it's annual ryegrass, and so basically it'll die. So you use it as a cover crop, or you graze it. Grazing is perfect because you don't have to worry about when to plant it or when to kill it or anything like that. Whereas if you're using it as a cover crop with corn or soybeans, then you have to get it in on time in the fall, so you get your growth so that you can kill it early in the spring and get your crop in. And so it's more of a management situation than where you're grazing.
I think another thing to add right there too, Dr. Murdock, from your research is, as we're using that annual ryegrass for those growers that graze or have that manure,
Yeah.
you're seeing even more of a breakdown in that Fragipan on those manured soils. So you got them dairy guys in PA, New York. You got the chicken farms in Georgia, areas of that nature. If you're using those.
Yeah, that was. I remember the first time I saw that. I was in southern Indiana, and people asked me to come and look at these fields. They would tell me because they hear the work you've done, and I put that guy was using a lot of manure on this and raising ryegrass, and he would graze it, and then he would kill it late, like in May, and then he would plant corn for silage, and then so I had plenty of time to plant and kill the ryegrass and get the grazing and even use it some for hay. But and a lot of manure, of course, falling from the cattle as well as spread. And I put that probe in there. I've never seen such a good soil in my whole life. I mean, it was deep and dark, and he hadn't had enough to get completely through the profile, but he was about halfway through the Fragipan part of the profile. Yeah.
So it's still going to take time. You
Well, it
don't
takes
plant ryegrass,
No.
annual ryegrass once, and now my Fragipan's gone. It's still a practice we have to work towards, but we've found a solution.
It's a process, but they've never been able to have a solution before. So,
How long do you think it takes? 10 years?
it takes, I've done a lot of measuring on fields where farmers have had it for different times, and you can take that field where they've had it and you know how long it is, and then you go next to the field where it hasn't ever been grown, so you can make your measurements and get pretty good ideas of what's happening. But it goes anywhere. I found it at like 25 fields I've tested.
Okay.
It goes from 0.6 of a Fragipan a year to 2.5 inches a year. 2.5 is very unusual. That's 2.5 was on that manure area. But it doesn't. So from what I've seen, I think it takes somewhere between 10 and 15 years in most cases to completely get through it. You gain a little bit you gain a little bit each year, but the first few years you don't gain enough that you think I'm not sure I'm really doing well.
So once you break it, is this a prescription? You got to have rye every year, or is it fixed?
No, it's all right. You can have once every second year, but it just counts as 1 year.
Right.
It's just the year that you have done
So
that.
just keep doing the rye.
Yeah, and so one of your questions that you're asking probably is, can it reseal if you quit growing it or something? And we don't really know the answer to that. But right now, the evidence we have indicates no. Once you break that bond, those chemical compounds separate, and they don't come back together.
Is there earthworms there?
There will be when you get the Fragipan.
So you have it on the top 2 foot,
yeah.
2 foot, and they just can't get through it?
Nothing gets through it.
But I bet once you start getting the roots going through there, they'll have pathways.
Yeah, and there's weaknesses in the Fragipan. The Fragipan is not the same all over, and those roots will find those weaknesses, and that'll be done faster, and so then it starts to widen, and those streaks begin to widen because they're easier to get to by those roots, and so that's the reason that you can't just calculate straight.
Sure.
In other words, 0.6 of an inch a year. To get to 2 feet of Fragipan, that you're talking 30 years, but you don't have to have 30 years because of this particular phenomena that occurs.
Wow, that's awesome.
So obviously this is important to you and some of your fellow AgX employees because you farm in that area.
Correct.
But what have you been able to do with the knowledge of what AgX has to offer to help push it through?
When I started using this Dr. Murdock's program 12, 15 years ago, what we was able to do is once that grower broke that, it gave us obviously more water holding capacity. So therefore I could use organic acids, make prescriptions based on good soil, and increase the yield. I mean, it's truly nothing, as he said, 50 bushels per acre. Once we break through that, it is nothing to change it to 40 to 50 bushels an acre. I've probably been lucky living close to Dr. Murdock and adopted this. I'm going to say I have 70% of my clientele on Fragipan soils that's been doing this for at least 10 years now, and we keep going up. I think of one grower, super soupy farm he had, just unbelievably wet. Being Kentucky, tobacco belt country, we raise a lot of tobacco. Tobacco hates wet feet, going to scald, die down. When we started using this ryegrass breaking that, all of a sudden water was permeating through. We was perking. all of a sudden tobacco, we was able to raise it. Income on the farm goes through the roof. We went down there and probed that farm a couple of years ago. Hey, we went from 9 and 10 inches of topsoil now to 26, 28 inches.
Wow.
So it dried it up. But as AgX, it just allows us to better place products that are going to work instead of throwing something up against the wall hoping it'll stick. Prescription work.
It puts you as the expert. You want your growers to succeed. It doesn't matter if you don't have a product, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You want to be the expert. You want to bring them things that's going to allow them to send their kids to college, buy the new pulling tractor, be the expert that's
Yep.
going to make money. And it's not always with the product. It can be
Yep.
about knowledge from annual ryegrass to when to market your grain.
Yeah. I mean, there's not very many products that could say 40, 50 bushel.
That's exactly right.
You know, 5 bushels is
Yeah.
a lot on a product.
You know, and I think as we talk about the positives, and Lloyd and I have talked the negative to annual rye. So there are negative in a farmer's concept. We talk about burning it down and killing it for a cover crop. Well, that needs to be done before it's booted. So if you're depending upon a custom app to come spray your crop for you, it may be booted by the time they get there, and you got to spray it twice with Roundup. And they complain about that because you got 2 applications costs. But the benefit that the annual ryegrass brings you, if you're open-minded and progressive enough, is fine for that. Or I think we need to understand where to get our seed from, because you can get some seed that comes in that can have different weeds, noxious things, or be resistant. Annual ryegrass in Kentucky, in our wheat belt area too, some people think of the Roundup resistant Italian rye, and so they put that in their mind, oh, we don't want that because it's going to be, so it's going to be educating the farmer about what a true annual ryegrass is, how to control it, manage it for your crops you're raising. And then once they do that and they get the true mindset behind it, it is a game changer.
Yeah.
That was my next question was, what is there a specific variety of rye? Is there a place you source it from?
It has to be annual ryegrass. It can't be perennial ryegrass. It can't be cereal rye. It has to be annual ryegrass. Annual ryegrass sometimes called Italian ryegrass sometimes, and that was developed in the southern part of Europe, in Italy. Then there's Westerwald, which is the northern part. That's where annual ryegrass came from.
Annual's the small seed. I said big seed earlier.
Yeah, you said it backwards.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
it's like turf grass.
yeah, it's really good. It's a great turf. It only lasts for, but it's a good one to start out on. If you just if you're just trying to get something started on your lawn, you know, when you haven't got a good one established. But there's some problems. You know, one is I was in Kentucky when we tried to get no-till adopted in the state. And it's the same thing with this here. I mean, first of all, people doubt it. They don't want to. If everything's going right, they don't want to change, and so you've got to prove to them that it's real. And so we have just farmer resistance. That's common, you know. And then some of them just don't even believe it, and so because it's you know. I've got soil scientists that tell me you can't change the soil profile, but we're changing the soil profile. And so it's the first time, it's as far as I know, it's ever happened. And so there's some barriers there. And then it's got a bad name because it has become resistant to Roundup, which was easy. And the farmer tries it and he doesn't kill it very well, or he leaves some stragglers out there, and they quit. They don't. But all these guys that he's working with that use it, they have figured it out. So it's not that it can't be controlled and used well. It can be, but you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, 'cause in Central Iowa, we're using cereal rye as a cover, and then we chop it or bale it for cattle feed.
Yeah.
And what we've learned is it doesn't work on our operation to plant corn after cereal rye. We're better off planting our soybeans. At least there's a better benefit for us to go that direction. But I totally understand. To make sure you understand where your seed's coming from and what else comes in that seed with it, because we've had a couple of headaches that it wasn't clean seed.
Yeah, a lot of CRP type seed has come into Iowa from places that got some noxious weeds. Not good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, is there a specific seeding rate?
People use different seeding rates. You know, in my research, I used about 15 to 20 pounds per acre, but it's very common. People use 10 pounds, 10 to 12.
Half bushel? That's less than a half a bushel?
Yeah, it's quite a bit less. Yeah.
Where have you guys been?
We just got back from the Custom Harvesters event where operators from across the country couldn't stop talking about Steinbauer performance modules.
Yeah, they're seeing up to 25% more power, better fuel efficiency, all with smarter injector duration and not altering the rail pressure for safe and reliable performance.
If you're looking to maximize your machine's potential, go to steinbauer.us and tell them Farm for Profit sent you to get yours today.
Have you tried like combinations of maybe other routes that could go and push and
There's
ride?
nothing that there's a few plants that will exceed 300 psi. There's not many, but basically it doesn't make any difference. The ryegrass will get down through there. A lot of people put just a small amount of ryegrass in with clovers and the other different types of
like
cover
turnips
crops.
or radishes.
Yeah, they use. There's all kinds of combinations. The fellow I was telling you about in Southern Illinois, where I went and decided that we ought to try ryegrass in the laboratory. He uses the combination. He's been very successful, and so yeah, it will make it work. It's probably a little faster, a little bit better if it's the dominant material in the mix, but it'll go either way.
I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg. If you get such a large percentage increase just by breaking it, what's available after that? Can then we go in and tile and actually drain even better and, just get this great soil profile and even have exponential growth here?
Yeah, well, tile drainage is not much of a problem when you get when you break that pan and you've got 5 feet of soil down below there. It's not going to build up enough that it's going to be really a problem in most cases. So that's really not too much of a problem. It's about unbroken Fragipan as it exists. My best calculations are it's about a 6-inch water deficit for a good corn yield. And so it doesn't die or anything, but it's just not going to get where it should be.
Meaning the corn yield would portray a 6-inch deficit of water.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
from
they do.
Max. Okay.
Uh-huh.
What about this has to increase the value of the land if you could do this, doesn't it?
I think if I had a lot of money,
More productivity.
I would buy a lot of good Fragipan land and then start putting.
So before
I'm
we
pretty
put
sure
this
the
out,
show goes out.
yeah, we're going long. Yeah.
Yeah, that has been a discussion amongst growers that I actually have that said, hey, don't let anyone know that we've done this because I don't want taxes going up. You know what I'm saying?
This is some
I ain't worried
Nancy
about- we
Pelosi
didn't worry
stuff
about
here.
that.
going
That's
on
right.
here. Some insider trading.
That's right.
We're going to go right down in his neighborhood.
That's right.
We're gonna
That's
pick up a couple thousand acres.
Hey, they're going to be growing more corn in the Midwest here soon. Dang.
Weather patterns are shifting.
Yeah.
They're getting the snow that we're not getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were colder this week at home than it was in Anchorage, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, take your weather back.
Probably a pain in the butt for you, but I bet it'll get rid of a lot of disease and bugs
That's
and
what
all
we're
that
hoping
kind of
for.
stuff.
That's
So you
what
probably
we're
have a good
hoping
year
for.
coming.
But I think one thing that's going to be interesting about this annual ryegrass is March 13th.
Yeah,
is
right.
field day at Hazel, Kentucky at the Pascal Ag Operations, who's this gentleman that's doing these wondrous yields. It's going to be nationwide. I'm tickled to death to have Dr. Murdock, AgXplore, doing that, but we want to invite the listeners. We already have people from all over the U.S. coming to see this. I think if you farm a Fragipan soil, you owe it to yourself to be on that day, either watching it via a video or there to see what can be done. Put the naysay behind.
Mm-hmm.
You can always say, oh, this is not going to work, and that's not going to. You can either be the first and you can make a lot of money off extra corn, or you can be the last and be saying, well, now corn's $1.50 because we just broke 50 million acres of Fragipan.
Well, yeah.
So, you decide which one you want to be,
Right.
first or last.
Well, it's not going to happen overnight.
That's
and I
right.
imagine there's probably other crops that you could be taking advantage of.
So we're
Absolutely.
rotating on this particular farm with quite a bit of watermelon and produce. And so what we have seen on that, a shallow-rooted crop that they are, is we're getting more depth, we're getting more yield, and it's bringing quite a bit more income for that right there as we're taking into our rotate. And, we're hitting, I think he has a 3-year average of 98 bushel on beans in behind the next rotation.
Holy cow.
That we were normally doing a 55 9 years ago. When we started, we would go 55, we went to 62.
That's a bigger
Then we-
percent increase in corn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, they're no longer poverty peas either when you're making that kind of bushel.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like it right now. This
That's
the bean
right.
market.
Well, I couldn't believe that I didn't put it into perspective. Obviously, I was thinking corn and soybeans, but you've talked about grazing on multiple occasions.
That's right.
You can now run more cows, more pairs per acre because you've got a better quality pasture.
Oh, it's a great quality
And
material. Yeah.
then I work with a lot of dairies, so we'll use it for a green shop for spring silage right there. Just the protein level is really good. It's winter hardy. It responds to management. It's got a lot of fits.
Wow, that's amazing. So this field day, do people need to sign up for that? How do they go to
Yeah, it would be helpful if they would, if they want to come, but we want them to come no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But the University of Kentucky Extension Office in Callaway County, Kentucky, which is Murray is the county seat. If they just look that up online and give them a call, that will be very helpful to us.
And will you guys
be careful.
doing
We
live?
might be sending you hundreds.
We will be doing live that day. We're going to be doing digs with the excavators to show the progress down on both treated and untreated. We're going to have Roundtable there with just common old growers like ourselves just sitting there. Dr. Murdock here, he's going to bring our educational expertise, and it's going to be just a bunch of old farmers sitting around saying, hey, we applied this right here, and in layman's terms, we're getting a better yield and stuff. So we're wanting to make it a laid-back style day to where we just understand the benefits.
Well, we want those guys that have been successful because that around this roundtable because of the negative connotation of ryegrass and not being able to control it. And so we'll have 4 guys that use it. They know how to control it. They know how to use it. They know when to do what and what to do when. And so you guys listen to them and you won't have that problem. Just listen to them because they've been successful. And so we want that to take that part of the 3 things that brought us that are a problem. We want to take that away.
Wow. I think that's great. I mean, there's no better way to learn than come get your fingers dirt and get in the dirt. Yeah. Get dirty, get your fingers. Yeah. Yep. All that.
Put some dirt under your fingernails?
Yeah,
Is that what you wanted to say?
That's what I'm looking for.
I'm the one with the coffee.
You are. I need a coffee.
Yes. Well, gentlemen, this has been an absolute pleasure. Did we miss anything? George has something to add. Come on over.
Give him.
Yeah, thank you. I think
This is George.
the one thing that I think that is going to really come to light with broad adaptation to using it in ryegrass. It's in the Mississippi River Drainage District, okay? Up the Ohio River. It's probably 35 million acres of cropland from Grenada, Mississippi, where it starts, up to Cincinnati. Actually goes beyond Cincinnati, but we'll stop there. And if you ponder 35 million acres, sequestering another 75 to 80,000 gallons of water per acre, plus the nutrients, before it hits the drainage district, then you've got probably a pretty good chance of eliminating the red tide in the Gulf. Right. Now, whether or not we can shrink,
We talked about that yesterday. The dead zone, red tide, whatever. Yeah. Yep.
whether we can shrink the
Hypoxia,
that's
hypoxia,
beyond my
yeah.
pay grade. But we do. I'm pretty sure we can influence the red tide. Right. But it's just incredible. And the other thing is, you got to remember, in agronomic history, this is the first time that the soil profile has been altered. It's never been done before. And this is a more profound event than anything we've ever done in agriculture, and it's on a significant number of acres.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it takes soils thousands, millions to
Yeah.
change, right? So.
Yeah, I mean it's just incredible, and as far as eliminating the Fragipan, eliminating the ryegrass, it's simple. It's just a formula you got to follow, the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be growing for 3 days. Number 2, you want to spray after 9 and before 3. Number 3, you want to make sure that your water pH is 5.5 or less.
Oop.
If you don't get it there, you're just going to have a little mess. Okay, now, we've got guys using Italian just mixed ryegrass, one in Humboldt, Tennessee. That gentleman uses VNS. You know, I was shocked. But
Variety not stated.
Yeah, he uses VNS. And he's able to eliminate, he's never had an issue. And he's been using that in ryegrass about 10 years, I think, Lloyd. And so to that end, he's eliminating it without any major issues. So there are ways to work your way through the elimination of annual ryegrass. It is not a major problem. We've got too many people doing it. And they've been doing it consistently over 8, 10, 12, 15 years. And if you were to use anything with annual ryegrass in our footprint, I would suggest just crimson clover.
Okay.
But to your point on cereal rye, it's very difficult to make good corn crop behind cereal rye. The seed-in ratio is off the chart.
What's the chemistry that you're using for killing the rye?
Well, it's a gentleman in Humboldt just speaking of. Well, he comes through and he burns down with paraquat or gramoxone.
Gramoxone, yep.
And then when he lays by his crop, whether it's cotton or corn or beans, when he lays that by, then he hits it with about 40 ounces of Roundup.
Okay.
Okay? And so he says that's not a problem. What he's doing, he's giving the annual ryegrass time to regrow a little bit where it's got green plant material. And then he hits it with the Roundup. It's already weakened, and he takes it on out.
Okay.
So you need to be careful the varieties that you pick. I mean, you really do. And Lloyd has pointed that out. But you really should be careful. But I think that the environmental benefit from this thing is off the chart. And I think as a story agriculture is going to have to very much start focusing on. We're the only place that can clean up the air and the water. And no other place in society can do that. So we've got to make that point. And particular policymakers. So there we are. I mean, that's my little 2 cents worth. And
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
I mean, yeah, sequester nutrients, and now I'll see the carbon people will be jumping on, and the NRCS, and all
That's right.
that.
We
Yeah,
need to start a carbon company
Yeah.
that certifies as Fragipan acres, and we're going to have a real estate holding company that's bought
Yeah.
undisturbed Fragipan acres.
Yes. I can see the future
Opportunities
for
are
us.
endless.
That's right.
That's right. Well, again, this is our pleasure. Appreciate you bringing up Dr. Murdock.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming up here and the years of effort you put into it.
Yeah.
Right? If you'd have given up, we wouldn't have had a solution.
Yeah, I'm tickled to death. I enjoy it. It's a pleasure and an honor, really, to do something like that.
This is some Norman Borlaug stuff going on that you got going on.
Well,
So that's pretty cool.
You know what? We did learn just yesterday that there's actually a Drainage Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Something like this could open up an opportunity to get yourself inducted into the Drainage Hall of Fame.
Yeah. You and 27 other people.
Autograph signing, book signings. Lloyd, I tell you, you'll be bigger than Aerosmith.
Statues.
I love it. Well, thank you again. Appreciate you guys coming up. Listeners, we thank you for listening. So until next time, have a good one.